Hello, welcome back to my channel. It is personally my favorite time of the month to do bookish things because my favorite bookish thing to do is make my monthly TBR. So since October is upon us, I finally made my October TBR and I am so excited. Like, October is just the perfect cozy reading month for me. I've got lots of witchy reads, paranormal reads, fantasy reads, just spooky reads for the fall time. Literally sitting right here is 20 books that I want to read in October. This doesn't even include Kindle books that I want to read. And we've got every genre under the sun. We've got classics, thrillers, literary fiction, romance, fantasy, romantasy, we've got YA, we've got adult, like we've got it all. So stick around to see the 20 books that I have on my TBR. I do prefer to go into my books blindly, so I don't know a ton about all of these books. So it's going to be more like a quick little thing about what each book is about, but since there's 20 books, it still might take a hot minute. Let's just get into it. Starting with adult romance first. We have The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore by Lori Gilmore. This is the second book in the little pumpkin spice cafe world. I don't know if there's actually like a title for that series, but basically this book is going to follow some side characters that we saw in the pumpkin spice cafe, and it's this cozy small town romance. The main character works at a bookstore, and then the male main character is like pining after her and really wants to impress her, so I think he starts joining her book club. I don't know, that just sounds so cute. I feel like I'm going to enjoy this a lot more than I enjoyed the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. Then we have The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson. This is a little paranormal romance where they are werewolves but also doctors. I think it's fake dating because they can both benefit off of having this fake relationship. Like, the female main character has her grandma that's just like, you need to find your mate. So she finds this other doctor that she works with, and he also needs to find his mate. So I think this will just be perfect. I love fake dating, and this is just fun for October. Next we have Love and Other Conspiracies. This is again another paranormal romance, and I think this one, the male main character has this big famous podcast where he talks about conspiracy theories. And then the female main character was just broken up with, and I think what is she? I don't know. Honestly, I feel like the synopsis on the back of this is a little bit confusing, but the female main character then teams up with this podcast host about these conspiracy theories. Then we have A Grim Reaper's Guide to Catching a Killer. I just think that this cover is beautiful, first of all, so fun. And I think the main character in this is Kathy, yes, and she is the modern day Grim Reaper. She's going through divorce, she's pregnant, and she just feels like her life is kind of a mess. She doesn't have what it takes to be a good mom. When she goes to pick up a new client, aka like the dead person whose body and soul needs taking, she realizes that his soul is missing, and it's because this ghost, whatever we want to call it, thinks he was murdered, so he wants Kathy to like get to the bottom of it. Again, I just think this sounds so fun. It kind of reminds me of The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston, and I love that. So Happy Medium by Sarah Adler. This is another more paranormal rom-com. The female main character is a medium. I say that because she's more like a con artist that cons these people into thinking she's a medium just so she can get her money. So when she's hired by one of her very, very wealthy clients to go and cleanse this farm, she's like, oh, easy, perfect gig. But then it turns out that this place actually is haunted, and there are actually ghosts to be cleansed of the property. And she happens to be very, very attracted to the male main character. I think that this would be a really, really good palette cleanser between more of the heavier fantasy books. Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper. Honestly, I don't know what this one is about at all, but it's a witchy romance, and like obviously I need to read that in October. Emily Henry does have a little quote on the front, and it says, "A sexy, funny, charming romp of a novel that scratches the witchy autumnal itch just right." And it's Emily Henry. I love Emily Henry, so like that just tells me that this is going to be a great read. Next is Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood, and I'm pretty sure this book just came out recently, but look at how cute that cover is. This book is about Belladonna, who is a witch, and she's kind of lost her magical touch. Like, she hasn't lost her powers completely, but she's just like, meh. So she ends up having to go through these trials in this witch coven to see if she's still worthy to be a witch. I think that this one just sounds more heartwarming and like cozy magicalness than some of the other books, and this one, I don't know if there's any romance in it. I think it's more fantasy. Now on to some YA books, romance, and a few fantasies. This is Spells for Lost Things. This is a YA romance. It takes place in Salem, Massachusetts, which I went to Salem for my honeymoon and absolutely adored it. So when I heard about this book, I was like, that sounds absolutely perfect. So in this book, Willow's mom takes her to Salem, Massachusetts to kind of deal with some family affairs, I think, and Willow thinks that her family might come from witches. She meets Mason while she's there, and they just kind of become obsessed with each other, so this sounds like a super cute little witchy read. And I love YA romance sometimes because there's no spice. I just feel like spice takes away from the actual romance and emotional connection sometimes. Next is Blood and Moonlight by Erin Beatty, and this is a fantasy murder mystery. Honestly, the whole fantasy murder mystery concept reminds me of Crescent City, so I think that's what drew me to this so much. And also I feel like it might be a little bit darker because it is a YA book, but since it's got a whole murder mystery aspect, again, that seems a little dark. I think this will be a nice little spooky October read. A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. Honestly, every time I read the synopsis of this book, I'm a little bit confused. Like, I can't follow it entirely, so I feel like this is one that I'm just gonna have to jump into mostly blind. But I do know it has rivals to lovers, takes place in a school, and there is magic. So it's kind of like academia vibes while also being fantasy, and I think that is really cool and fun. The Blood Trader. This is the third and final book in the Prison Healer trilogy, which is a YA fantasy trilogy. I read the first two books in September. I am so excited to finish up the series because those first two books are so amazing. I'm just hoping that this lives up to the first two books. And The Prison Healer is about 17-year-old Kiva who got sent to Zandalov, which is a death prison. So she was sent there when she was 7 with her father, and she's been there 10 years now. And a new prisoner gets brought in, and Kiva basically has to do their, like, I don't want to say onboarding, even though I feel like that's what they call it in the book, but onboarding just sounds so wrong since it's a prison. A death prison at that. She is the main prison healer, so she has to basically, like, leave the Zandalov mark on them, like carve it into them and make sure they're good and healthy enough to be in the prison, like they're not dead on arrival. So she's taking care of one of those new prisoners, and then a few weeks pass by and another prisoner gets brought in, and it turns out it is the rebel queen of this world. The rebel queen is going to be sentenced to these trials. Basically, no one has ever survived these trials, but the rebels have given Kiva orders that this rebel queen needs to stay alive. So Kiva does her best to take care of her, and then she actually ends up taking the rebel queen's place in these trials. This book was just absolutely insane, especially the ending. I was like, jaw on the floor. So very, very excited to finish up the series. A Torch Against the Night. This is the second book in the Ember in the Ashes series. I also read that first book in September. I talk a lot about it in my Finding 5-Star Reads video if you want to check that out. But I'm just very excited to be back in this world because I loved An Ember in the Ashes. It was a 5-star read for me. Next we have Kingdom of the Curse and Kingdom of the Feared. This is the second and third book of the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy. Basically, A Kingdom of the Wicked is about two witch twins, and one of the twins ends up dying, so the other witch twin goes to investigate her death more because she feels like there is something fishy with it. And she ends up meeting Wrath, who is basically helping her figure everything out. It's a little bit steamy for being YA. It's just like a really fun, slightly dark little fantasy romance. The Witching Flower. I think this is going to be more so of a cozy, not really high risk fantasy romance. Like, the witch is literally baking. That is so cute. But I do think it's supposed to be spicy, so this will be fun. Two Twisted Crowns. I have no idea what to expect from this book. It is the second book in the Shepherd King duology. It follows One Dark Window. And the ending of One Dark Window, just like, what? So I'm very excited to see what's gonna happen in this. It's more of a dark, gothic fantasy with some romance in it. I've heard that this book follows some of the side characters from the first book a lot more, so I think that'll be interesting just for like me, because I wasn't super attached to any of the side characters from the first book, so I'm interested to see what I'll think of that. The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. I feel like everyone tells you that if you love Sarah J Maas books, you need to read Carissa Broadbent. So this will be the first Carissa Broadbent book I will be reading. I'm very excited for it. I think this is a vampire romantasy. I'm really hoping I love Carissa Broadbent as much as I love Sarah J Maas, because I am obsessed with Sarah J Maas. The Only One Left by Riley Sager. This is the only thriller I have on my TBR for the month of October. But like, if there's any time to read thrillers, it is the fall. Spooky, cozy little mystery thrillers. I don't think this one's very cozy though. I think this one's definitely a little bit more graphic. Again, going into this mostly blindly, I just like doing that for thrillers especially. I don't want to know the character's whole life story before diving in. But I think this one is about a murder that took place many, many, many years ago, and there was only one survivor left from the family. So now, many, many, many years later, the one survivor is now telling the story of that night. So you're just kind of like going through her recapping the story throughout the book. I think it sounds super interesting. I've heard a lot of people say this is their favorite Riley Sager book. I've never read any Riley Sager, but I'm really excited to get into it. The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. My sister-in-law and I are actually starting a monthly book podcast, and this is going to be our first read for that podcast. I'm not exactly sure what this one is about, other than it is a historical fiction like most of Kristen Hanna books, but we just both love Kristen Hanna so much, I was like, we need to start with her. And lastly, we have The Scarlet Letter. This is the only classic I plan on reading in October. I was actually supposed to read this in September, but I didn't. But I do really want to read it. I just didn't get time to get into it in September, so I'm very excited to read it in October. Not sure what it's about, other than it's a classic. So those are the 20 physical books I want to read in the month of October. There will probably be more new releases that I want to read and I pick up, and there are also more ebooks that I want to read on my Kindle. It's just a very, very, very ambitious reading month for me, but I'm hoping to get through, if not all of them, a very good bit of them. Because like I said, October is just my favorite time of the year to cozy up with a good book. Let me know what's on your October TBR, what books I should add to my October TBR, even though I don't really need any. But I just love getting recommendations, and please let me know what other videos you want to see from me in the future. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. It means so much to me, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!